The year is 2021. Washington, D.C. pulses with power and prestige, its monuments gleaming under autumn sun. But on this particular Thursday afternoon, the carefully manicured world of Georgetown's elite is about to crack wide open. A midnight black Lamborghini Aventador rolls to a stop outside the Capitol Heights Country Club. The engine's growl dies, replaced by stunned silence from the valets and members gathered near the entrance. The scissor door lifts like a wing, and out steps Rebecca Cruz. She's 28 now, but the years have been kind, transformative even. Designer sunglasses shield eyes that once cried themselves dry. A tailored ivory suit hugs curves that poverty and struggle once tried to diminish. Diamond studs catch the light as she moves with the confidence of someone who's conquered mountains. Behind her, 2 car doors open in perfect synchronization. Twin girls emerge, 6 years old, dressed in matching burgundy dresses. They have Rebecca's striking features and their father's green eyes that haven't seen them since before they were born. Inside the club, Grayson Davidson is holding court. At 35, he's everything his father groomed him to be, vice president of Davidson Capital Management, married to a senator's daughter, member of every board that matters. He's laughing at someone's joke when the murmur begins. It starts at the bar, ripples through the dining room, reaches the terrace where Grayson stands with his scotch and his carefully constructed life. Someone whispers a name he thought he'd buried. Rebecca Cruz. His glass stops halfway to his lips. His heart forgets to beat. If you've ever had your past walk back into your life when you least expected it, you know this moment. Stay with us, because some truths refuse to stay buried, and your presence here matters more than you know. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop a comment and become part of this story. Grayson turns toward the entrance, and there she is. Washington, D.C., 2014. The city looks the same, but the players are younger, hungrier. Rebecca Cruz lived in Shaw, a neighborhood gentrification hadn't fully claimed yet. Her apartment was a 5th-floor walk-up with water stains on the ceiling and neighbors who played music until 3 a.m. But it was hers, paid for by 2 jobs, mornings at a coffee shop in DuPont Circle, evenings waitressing at an upscale restaurant in Georgetown. That's where she met Grayson Davidson. He came in every Tuesday with clients, always ordering the same thing: ribeye medium rare, bourbon neat. He tipped well and smiled easily. For weeks, Rebecca served him without more than polite exchanges. Then one night, his clients canceled, and he asked if she'd have a drink with him after her shift. She should have said no. She knew the type: Georgetown-born, Ivy League educated, trust fund secured. But his smile seemed genuine. And God, she was tired of always being careful. They talked until the bar closed. He drove her home in his BMW, and when he saw her building, something flickered across his face. Not disgust, something softer. Surprise, maybe. Realization that their worlds were galaxies apart. But he called the next day anyway. For 6 months, they lived in a beautiful bubble. Grayson took her to restaurants where the wine cost more than her rent. He bought her a dress for a gala that made her feel like Cinderella. He said he was falling in love with her. She believed him. Then she met his father. Richard Davidson wore his wealth like armor. Custom suits, platinum cufflinks, a smile that never reached his cold blue eyes. He invited Rebecca to lunch, just the 2 of them at the Capitol Grill. "You seem like a nice girl," Richard said, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "But my son has responsibilities, a legacy to uphold. Surely you understand that certain matches simply don't work." Rebecca's hands shook in her lap. "Are you asking me to leave him?" Richard smiled. "I'm offering you $50,000 to disappear." Rebecca walked out of that lunch with her pride intact and her heart shattering. She didn't tell Grayson about his father's offer, not at first. She wanted to believe love could overcome the money, the class divide, the expectations, but Richard Davidson was patient and strategic. Within 2 weeks, Grayson started canceling dates, work emergencies, family obligations, vague excuses that felt rehearsed. When they did see each other, something had changed. He wouldn't meet her eyes. His laughter sounded hollow. Finally, on a rainy Tuesday in November, he took her to a coffee shop near her apartment, not one of their usual places, somewhere neutral and forgettable. "Rebecca, I care about you," he began, and she knew from those 5 words that everything was ending. "But I think we want different things. You're focused on building your life, and I have obligations to my family business. It's not fair to either of us to keep pretending this can work long term." The speech sounded memorized, probably was. "Your father got to you," she said quietly. Grayson's jaw tightened. "This is my decision." "Is it? Or did he threaten to cut you off, to take away the trust fund, the job, the perfect life he's been building for you since birth?" "That's not fair." Rebecca laughed, sharp and bitter. "You're right. Nothing about this is fair." She stood, grabbing her coat. Grayson reached for her hand. "Rebecca, please. Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't make this harder than it already is." She walked out into the rain. He didn't follow. 3 weeks later, she took the pregnancy test. Then another. Then 5 more, each showing the same impossible truth. Positive, positive, positive. She tried calling Grayson. He never answered. His phone went to voicemail until eventually the number was disconnected. She went to his office building, but security turned her away. She wrote emails that bounced back. Grayson Davidson had erased her completely. Alone in her apartment, hand on her still flat stomach, Rebecca made a choice. She wouldn't beg, wouldn't chase, wouldn't give Richard Davidson the satisfaction of seeing her broken. She would disappear, but on her terms. And she would never, ever need anything from the Davidson family again. But fate had one more surprise waiting. At her 8-week ultrasound, the technician paused, adjusted the monitor, then smiled. "Congratulations, you're having twins." Rebecca named her daughters Sophia and Isabella. They were born premature, tiny and fragile, spending 3 weeks in the NICU while bills piled up like snowdrifts. Medicaid covered most of it, but most still left thousands she didn't have. She worked until the day her water broke. Returned to work 6 weeks after delivery, the girls strapped to her chest in carriers. Her apartment complex manager let her pay rent late twice before threatening eviction. Her sister in Baltimore offered to take the twins, just temporarily, just until Rebecca got on her feet. Rebecca refused. These were her daughters. Grayson's daughters, though he'd never know it. She would find a way. At night, after the twins finally slept, Rebecca sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, a refurbished model she'd bought for $200, and taught herself to code. Online tutorials, free courses, YouTube videos watched at 2 a.m. while she pumped breast milk and wrote Python scripts. She had an idea, an app for gig workers that would optimize schedules across multiple jobs, factor in childcare costs, calculate true hourly wages after expenses. She'd lived that chaos. She knew what workers needed because she was one of them. 18 months of 4-hour nights. 18 months of debugging code while bouncing a crying baby. 18 months of choosing between groceries and internet, knowing the internet was her only way out. The app launched on a Wednesday. She called it Time-Wise. The first week, 200 downloads. By month 2, 50,000. By 6 months, venture capitalists were calling her unique and inspiring, words that felt like condescension wrapped in admiration. But their money was real. Their offers were substantial. Rebecca sat across from men in suits who reminded her of Richard Davidson, and this time she held all the cards. She negotiated equity, board seats, control. She learned to speak their language, to weaponize her story without letting it define her. Timewise sold 18 months later for $340 million. Rebecca Cruz became a millionaire before her daughters turned 3. She moved to a townhouse in Georgetown, the same neighborhood where she'd once served Grayson his Tuesday ribeye. She hired a nanny, enrolled the twins in an exclusive preschool, joined the very country club where Grayson's family held membership. And she waited. Because revenge isn't a dish served cold. It's served at exactly the right temperature, at exactly the right moment, when your enemy has everything to lose and no idea you're coming. Today, walking into the Capitol Heights Country Club with her daughters and her Lamborghini, Rebecca knew that moment had arrived. Grayson stood frozen on the terrace, scotch forgotten in his hand. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he watched Rebecca approach the club entrance. She moved like royalty, like someone who belonged here more than anyone else. The twins flanked her, carbon copies of their mother's grace, and something else. Something that made his breath catch. Those eyes. Green, like spring leaves, like his own reflection. His wife Amanda appeared at his elbow, champagne flute in hand. "Grayson, you look like you've seen a ghost." He had. Several of them. Rebecca entered the main hall, and the crowd parted. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every eye tracked her movement. She removed her sunglasses, and Grayson felt the room tilt. She'd always been beautiful, but poverty had dulled her then, exhaustion etched in shadows under her eyes. This woman was something else entirely. Success looked good on her. Power looked even better. Their eyes met across 50 feet of polished marble. Rebecca smiled, not with warmth, but with recognition, with purpose. She walked toward him. "Rebecca." His voice came out strangled. I didn't know you were a member here." "I wasn't." She gestured to the twins. "But I wanted my daughters to have access to the best facilities. The membership committee was very accommodating once they learned about my recent acquisition of Timewise Technologies. You've heard of it?" He had. Everyone had. The billion-dollar app that revolutionized gig work scheduling. The founder was some nobody who... Oh, God. "That's your company." "Was my company. I sold it last year." She paused. "For considerably more than your father offered me to leave you alone. Do you remember that, Grayson? The $50,000? I thought it was insulting then. Now I realize it was just bad business sense." Amanda's hand tightened on his arm. "Grayson, what is she talking about?" Rebecca's gaze shifted to Amanda, assessing, calculating. "You must be the senator's daughter. Amanda Whitmore, correct? I read about your wedding in the Post. It sounded lovely. Destination ceremony in Martha's Vineyard, 300 guests. That stunning Vera Wang gown." If you've ever wondered whether success is the sweetest revenge, stay with us now. Your engagement here, your comments, your presence, means we can keep telling stories about people who refused to stay broken. Where in the world are you watching from? Share your location and be part of what happens next. "I'm sorry," Amanda said coldly. "Do we know you?" Rebecca's smile widened. "Not yet, but you're about to." She knelt, bringing herself to the twins' eye level. "Sophia? Isabella? Say hello to your father." The words detonated like a bomb. Grayson's Scotch glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against marble. Amber liquid spread like blood. "That's not possible," he whispered. We used protection." "Yes, and it failed. Congratulations, Grayson. You're a father." Rebecca stood, smoothing her suit jacket. "The girls turned 6 last month. We had a wonderful party at our home in Georgetown. Pony rides, a magician, a 3-tier cake from Baked and Wired. You weren't invited, obviously." Amanda had gone pale. "This is insane. You can't just walk in here and make accusations? I'm not accusing anyone of anything. Rebecca pulled out her phone, swiped through several screens, then held it up. Medical records, birth certificates. Both listed father as unknown, but the dates were unmistakable. I have paternity test results too, if you'd like to see them, though honestly, just look at their eyes. Sophia and Isabella stood silent, well-trained in whatever script their mother had prepared. They watched Grayson with his own green eyes, curious, intelligent, utterly his. Why? Grayson managed. Why are you doing this now? Why not 7 years ago when you found out? Because 7 years ago I needed you. I would have begged for help, for money, for acknowledgement. Your father knew that. That's why he made his offer, to confirm I could be bought, that I was exactly the kind of trash he needed to sweep away from his precious son. She stepped closer, and Grayson caught her perfume. Expensive now, not the drugstore vanilla she used to wear. But I don't need you anymore, Grayson. I don't need your money or your name or your father's approval. I'm here today because my daughters deserve to know their father, and because I wanted you to understand exactly what you threw away. A crowd had gathered. Club members pressed close, phones out, recording every word. This would be on social media in minutes, splashed across DC gossip blogs by evening. Amanda jerked away from Grayson. You got someone pregnant and just abandoned her? I didn't know. She never told me. I tried. Rebecca's voice cut through his excuses. I called 47 times. I came to your office. I sent emails. You blocked every attempt. Your father made sure of that. My father? Grayson's face flushed. What did he do? After our lunch, the one where he offered me cash to disappear, I assume he told you I was dangerous. A gold digger. Someone trying to trap you. Am I close? Grayson's silence was confirmation enough. So, when I started calling, when I showed up desperate and pregnant, you believed his version. You made sure I couldn't reach you. You chose his version of the world over mine. Amanda's voice dropped to a whisper. Our wedding was 2 years ago. You never mentioned any of this. Because I thought... Grayson stopped. What had he thought? That Rebecca would just disappear? That consequences didn't exist for people like him? Isabella tugged on Rebecca's jacket. Mama, can we go? This place is making me uncomfortable. Soon, baby. Rebecca's expression softened when she looked at her daughters, then hardened again when she turned back to Grayson. I came here today to offer you a choice. The same choice you gave me 7 years ago. She pulled an envelope from her purse. Inside is a legal document. You can sign away all parental rights and we'll never bother you again. Or, she paused, you can try to be their father. The envelope sat on the high-top table between them like a live grenade. Rebecca had moved their conversation to a private conference room. Less audience, more space to breathe. Grayson sat across from her while Amanda paced near the window. The twins waited outside with the club's childcare staff, probably eating cookies and wondering why the adults looked so scared. Try to be their father? Grayson repeated. What does that even mean? Exactly what it sounds like. Visitation, birthdays, school events, child support, though I don't need your money. The girls do need stability, consistency, commitment. Can you provide those things? His hands shook as he reached for the envelope. Inside, legal documents prepared by what were obviously expensive attorneys. Every clause perfect, every contingency covered. If I sign this, I give up all rights, forever. Correct. But you'll also be protected from any future claims. The girls will never show up asking for inheritance, medical history, explanations. Clean break. Easy choice, really. It's what you wanted 7 years ago. Amanda stopped pacing. Grayson, you can't seriously be considering... Considering what? Rebecca interrupted. Abandoning his children? He already did that once. I'm just offering to make it official. That's not fair, Grayson said. I didn't know they existed. Because you made sure you wouldn't know. There's a difference between ignorance and willful blindness. She leaned back. Your father taught you that money can solve problems by making them invisible. Well, I became visible and wealthy, and now you have to decide what kind of man you actually are. The room fell silent except for the hum of central air, the distant clink of silverware from the dining room where life continued normally for everyone else. Grayson thought about his life, the corner office at Davidson Capital, the Georgetown townhouse, Amanda's carefully curated social calendar, his father's expectations, his mother's brittle smile, the weight of legacy pressing down like earth on a coffin. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. I want you to choose. For real, this time. Not because your father threatened you, or your wife is watching, or because a room full of country club members has their phones out. I want you to look at those two little girls and decide if you can be the father they deserve. And if I can't? Rebecca's expression didn't change. Then sign the papers and walk away. At least that would be honest. Amanda's voice cracked. Grayson, think about what this means. For us. For our life. We're planning to start a family next year. He already has a family. Rebecca's tone was ice. You're just deciding whether to acknowledge it. The envelope seemed to pulse with potential. Inside, freedom, simplicity, the same life he'd been living for 7 years. Outside that room, two little girls with his eyes who didn't know him, who'd been raised by a woman he'd discarded, who'd built an empire from nothing while he coasted on his family name. Can I meet them? The words surprised even him. Before I decide, can I actually talk to them? Rebecca studied him for a long moment. 5 minutes, supervised. If they're uncomfortable, we leave. She stood and walked to the door. The twins sat at a small table in the children's play area, coloring. Sophia worked on a rainbow, each color perfectly within the lines. Isabella drew what looked like a dragon eating a building. They looked up when Rebecca entered, with Grayson trailing behind like a defendant approaching the bench. Girls, this is Grayson Davidson. He'd like to talk with you for a few minutes. Is that okay? Sophia put down her crayon. Is he really our father? Biologically, yes. But you said our father didn't want to know us. Isabella's voice was smaller, uncertain. That was true then. Things have changed. Rebecca pulled out a chair. You don't have to talk to him if you don't want to. It's okay. Sophia, always the braver one, studied Grayson with clinical intensity. Why didn't you want to know us? The question punched through every defense he'd constructed. How do you explain cowardice to a 6-year-old? I didn't know you existed. Your mother and I stopped seeing each other before she knew she was pregnant. Why did you stop seeing her? Because I was scared. My family didn't think we belonged together. That's stupid, Isabella said. Mama is the smartest person in the world. You're right, it was stupid. Sophia picked up her purple crayon, rolling it between her fingers. Do you want to be our father now? I don't know if I know how. Nobody knows how at first, Isabella said matter-of-factly. Mama says parenting is something you learn by doing. Grayson glanced at Rebecca, who remained expressionless. No help coming from that corner. What do you like to do? He asked the girls. I like science, Sophia said, especially chemistry. Mama says I can have a real chemistry set when I'm 10. I like art, Isabella said. And dragons, and stories about dragons. I used to like stories too when I was your age. Did your father read to you? The question landed like a blade. No, not really. That's sad, Sophia said simply. Reading together is important. They talked for 20 minutes, longer than Rebecca had promised. The girls asked about his job, his house, whether he had pets. Grayson found himself telling them things he hadn't thought about in years. How he'd wanted to study history instead of business. How his father had laughed at the idea. How he'd learned to want what was expected instead of what made him happy. "That sounds like giving up," Isabella said. Out of the mouths of babes. Finally, Rebecca stood. "Time to go, girls. Say goodbye." "Will we see you again?" Sophia asked Grayson. "Do you want to?" She shrugged. "Maybe, if you want to." They gathered their coloring books and followed Rebecca toward the exit. Grayson stood there, frozen, watching them leave. 3 people, 3 whole human beings, walking out of his life unless he did something. "Wait." They stopped. "I don't know how to be your father. I don't know if I'll be good at it, but I want to try." Sophia looked at Isabella. Some twin telepathy passed between them. Then they looked at their mother. "Is that okay, Mama?" Isabella asked. Rebecca's face remained carefully neutral. "That's your decision, not mine." The twins whispered to each other. Grayson held his breath, and for the first time in 7 years, actually cared about the answer to a question he was asking. The conference room felt smaller when he returned. Amanda stood by the window, arms crossed, face set in lines he'd never seen before. "Well?" she demanded. "What did you decide?" "I'm going to try. To be their father." "You can't be serious." Her laugh was sharp, cutting. "Grayson, do you understand what this means? My mother is running for re-election next year. The opposition will crucify us with this. Senator's son-in-law caught in secret love child scandal. Can you see the headlines? I can't base this decision on your mother's campaign." "Of course you can. That's how this works. That's how our world works." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "Your father built your entire life around reputation and legacy. Are you really going to throw that away for 2 kids you didn't even know existed until an hour ago? They're my children. Allegedly. You haven't even taken a paternity test. Look at them, Amanda. They have my eyes, my mother's chin. There's no allegedly about it." She stared at him like he was a stranger. "I need you to think very carefully about your next move. I've built a life with you. A future. We have plans. Plans that apparently didn't include me having a past. Everyone has a past, but most people have the sense to keep it buried." Her voice rose. "Do you know what my father will say when I tell him? Do you know what your father will say?" "I don't care." The words surprised them both. "You don't care?" Amanda repeated slowly. "About your father's opinion? About your job? About the fact that walking away from this life means starting over from nothing? Rebecca did it. She started from nothing and built something incredible. Rebecca is..." Amanda caught herself. "Is what? Poor? Working class? Not one of us?" Grayson felt something crack open inside him, something that had been sealed shut for years. "My father said the same things about her 7 years ago. I listened to him then. I chose security over integrity. I'm not making that mistake twice." "This is insane. You're throwing away everything for what? Guilt? A savior complex?" "For the chance to be better than I was." Amanda pulled off her engagement ring. 4 carats, flawless clarity, chosen by his mother. She set it on the conference table with a soft click. "Then do it without me." She walked out, heels sharp against marble. The door closed with a final sounding thud. Grayson stood alone in the conference room, staring at the ring, a symbol of everything he was about to lose, everything he'd already lost without realizing it. His phone buzzed. His father. The text was short. "My office. Now." Richard Davidson's office occupied the top floor of Davidson Capital Management, with views of the Capitol Dome and the Washington Monument. Power and legacy distilled into mahogany furniture and oil paintings of ancestors who'd built the family fortune on railroad money and strategic marriages. Grayson's father stood behind his desk, face florid with rage. "Explain," Richard demanded. "Explain how a woman I paid to disappear 7 years ago is now a billionaire walking into our country club with your bastard children." "Don't call them that. That's what they are. Legally, socially, those girls are a stain on our family reputation. They're my daughters." "You have no daughters. You have a wife, a career, responsibilities to this company and this family name." Richard moved around the desk. "I built this life for you. Everything you have, everything you are, comes from me. And I will not watch you destroy it for some woman you fucked in your 20s. Something in Grayson's chest went quiet, peaceful, even. "You're right," he said softly. "Everything I have comes from you. The job I hate, the marriage I settled for, the life I never chose. You gave me all of it. Then don't throw it away." "I'm not throwing it away, I'm giving it back." The words hung between them. "What?" "I quit. The company, the legacy, the expectation, all of it. I quit." Richard's face went from red to purple. "You have no money without me. No connections, no future." "Rebecca managed without any of those things. I'll figure it out." "You think that woman will take you back? That she'll let you play father to children you abandoned?" "I don't know. But I'm going to try." Grayson moved toward the door. "Walk out that door and you're cut off, completely. No trust fund, no inheritance, nothing." Grayson paused, hand on the doorknob. "Good. I don't want anything that came from the man who paid off my pregnant girlfriend." He left his father's office, rode the elevator down 33 floors, and walked out into Washington, D.C.'s autumn afternoon. His phone buzzed non-stop. Amanda's lawyers, his mother, colleagues who'd heard the news. He silenced it all. He drove to Rebecca's address, found in the club's member directory, a Georgetown townhouse, brick and elegant. He rang the bell. Rebecca answered, still in her ivory suit, no surprise on her face. "I figured you'd come." "I need to tell you something," Grayson said. "I can't undo the past. I can't take back leaving you or the 7 years I missed. But I want to try, really try to be their father. Not because of guilt or obligation. Because they deserve better than I gave them." "They deserve better than you've been," Rebecca corrected. "The question is whether you can become better. I don't know, but I want the chance to find out." She studied him, really looked at him, past the expensive haircut and the tailored suit to something underneath. Whatever she saw must have been enough. "This won't be easy. The girls have questions. They'll need therapy. You'll need therapy. And I will never, ever let you hurt them the way you hurt me. Are we clear?" "Crystal, you'll sign a co-parenting agreement. Visitation will be supervised at first. If you miss one commitment, one birthday, one school event, you're done. No second chances after the second chance." "I understand." Rebecca opened the door wider. "The girls are having dinner. You can join us if you want." Grayson stepped inside. The townhouse was beautiful. High ceilings, original hardwood, modern furniture mixed with warmth. Through the doorway, he could see Sophia and Isabella at the kitchen table, giggling over something on Isabella's tablet. If you've stayed with us through this entire journey, you know that some stories don't end. They just begin again in different ways. Your time here, your comments, your willingness to witness these moments. That's what lets us keep sharing stories about people who refused to stay broken, who rebuilt themselves into something stronger. One last time, where in the world are you watching from? Drop that comment and carry this truth with you. It's never too late to become who you should have been. "Mama, is someone here?" Sophia called. Yes, baby. It's Grayson. He's joining us for dinner. The girls appeared in the hallway. Sophia carried a math workbook. Isabella had paint on her fingers. "Hi," Grayson said. His voice cracked. "I brought ice cream. I didn't know what flavor you liked, so I got 5 different kinds." Isabella's eyes lit up. 5 kinds? Is that too many? No, Sophia said seriously. That's exactly the right amount. They led him into the kitchen. This man who'd thrown away everything to try to deserve them. Rebecca watched from the doorway as he sat at her table, as her daughters showed him their homework and told him about their day, as he listened like their words were the most important things he'd ever heard. It wasn't redemption. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was a beginning.